Welcome back to the channel. I am so pumped to have you here because we're going to talk about something super important. We are kind of in the thick of it, but I do want to recognize it, and I really want you to be very present and pay close attention. So, welcome back. This is September, obviously, and we're in the thick of Hispanic Heritage Month. Super important month. And it is an opportunity, yes, we're going to honor the rich histories, the cultures, the contributions of Latino and Hispanic Americans. But I do want you all to remember that this month it's not only just a time to celebrate. It's really a moment that we all have to reflect on the unique challenges, which is many that Latino professionals face around belonging at work. And I want to also talk about how companies can help turn recognition into real inclusion because we can't just recognize without any other action that's going to come from that. So I want to bring you into the fold for a second of the Latino experience and how we can go beyond just celebrating. So, Latinos, when you think about this statistically, they do represent almost 1 in 5 Americans and are one of the fastest growing segments of the US workforce. They actually do make up about 19 to 20% of the civilian labor force. And when you think futuristically in 2050, it's actually projected that they're going to nearly be 1 in 3 working age adults in the community. And although this is a really huge growing presence, there's only about 25% of these Latino professionals that actually feel included at work. And it's a really startling gap when we talk about belonging. And in fact, it's not even just at work, it's in their personal lives. But when we think about this, we do know that 3/4 of Latinos say that they really do feel excluded at work. And it's very hard for them to navigate the workplace because they don't know how to speak up or feel like they can belong. And nearly half of them actively do seek new jobs because they just don't feel included. But they also know that there is so much happening around the world, and the state of the world is very different. So they are faced with so many unique challenges for belonging that is brought to the workplace. So a little bit more research here. So research does tell us that Latino employees they do face unique and intersectional challenges. Now, I want to talk a second and I'll go in there for a second or get to that point about what that means to have those intersectional challenges. So, one is the pressure to assimilate. Not every Latino American was born in America. They may have migrated, they may have immigrated here. English may not be their first language. They may have had to learn English over time, but they do try to assimilate and fit in because that, in some ways, feels like that's the one way that they can belong. So we look at 40% and 40% of the Latino community, they do feel that they actually have to downplay their heritage. They can't talk about it. Or they change aspects of themselves to just succeed. They hide the fact that they might have celebrations or have different cultural experiences, but they may not want to share it in the workplace because they know it's going to impact them professionally. There's also the colorism and representation. It's something that's called white passing. So Latino professionals, they feel more represented in leadership than those with darker skin. But there's also those pay inequities, particularly impacting Latinas. So women across the Latino spectrum. Pay inequities are across the board for women, but it's exacerbated for women of color, specifically Black women and Latinas. But there's also this expectation that, well, yeah, because I'm in this community, I have to educate people. So I'm expected to teach them about what I need and teach them about my culture and teach them about my challenges. So many times there are Latino employees that are just unfairly tasked with having to explain diversity and inclusion issues to their colleagues. And that's really burdensome and it's just tokenizing because not everybody's experience is the same. And also, they should not be expected to teach other people about their experiences. There should be some curiosity around it. And sadly, over half reported discrimination at work. Now imagine discrimination at work compounded by the feeling of exclusion, lack of belonging, and even compounded by the personal things that you're going through outside of the workplace. Just given the fear and the unknown and everything around the state of the world. There's also those intersection or intersectional identities. So that can span from things like geography to generation to language, sometimes even gender. And the Latino experience, it's so unique, and there are so many solutions that could work best for them. But what are they? How do you start to really think about what those solutions are and implement them in a way that fits their needs? So another study says that Latino workers say inclusion is a key factor in actually whether they're going to stay with an organization or not. 70% actually consider this significantly important for retention. And so when you think about it, when Latinos feel included and companies benefit from stronger performance, then they also benefit from retention and they also benefit from cultural innovation. There are significant pluses to just really thinking about intentionally including the Latino population. So I want to flip this for a second, and I do want to talk about, well, how can companies actually help Latino employees feel like they belong? What can companies do? That's a question I get a lot across many different identities. Um, but go beyond the surface level of your initiatives or your Heritage Month observances and think about how can I create true belonging and not just do the surface level awareness month or awareness workshop. So, first, I want you to listen and learn year round, not just in September. And really, I say that, it's fostering those open conversations, not only just about identity, it's about heritage and it's about those real barriers to belonging. And get curious and learn more and ask questions. And when you take an intersectional approach, think about how you can customize your inclusion strategies to things like gender and race and generational differences that are particularly within the Latino community. And that's going to take a bit of research and a bit of understanding on your part to learn more about those differences. Look at pay and who is getting promoted. How are people advancing? Where are the inequities there? And be very transparent about your wage and compensation policies and just how people get supported for leadership roles and advancement. And is it that you're only doing this for a certain group of people, or is it that you're really doing this in a way that is intentional and you're looking to see how this impacts Latino community? Also, invest in behavioral and systemic enablers. Now, what does this mean? These are things like inclusive behaviors or inclusive everyday behaviors. What are your processes, your systems, your decisions that are excluding the Latino community? And how can you build more of that inclusion in your everyday practices and behaviors? How do you look across your organizational processes and ensure that they are actually fair? And how do you make sure that all voices are heard in the room, in any meeting, in any space? And that means all voices, even across the intersection of the Latino community. Now, when I think about ways to build more community in your workplace for the Latino community, you also do want to think about employee resource groups. But you don't just want to put a group together to say you put a group together. You also don't want to feel like it's inauthentic or performative because you just want to make people happy. It's important that you build those authentic employee resource groups, which are spaces where Latino professionals can come together with people across the community and when they can be themselves and share their experiences and help shape company policies together and not just in a small vacuum individually from one another. Now, you may not know where to begin, and that's okay. And I gave you really great tips for you just to even start. Pick one, start with one. And if you are not sure on how you can implement that, I also want you to think about, well, who do I know that can help me to really think about this in an intentional way? Because you don't want to just do this for the sake of doing it, like I mentioned, because then that's when your company and your branding is impacted. People are leaving, which is not what you want at all, because people speak to one another and say that they'll tell their experiences and say, don't go work for that company because they don't include us, they don't respect us. So let's really be intentional in making belonging happen. It sounds really, really hard, but it's really not that bad. You just have to start. So think about Hispanic Heritage Month. It is a celebration, but it's also a call to action. And belonging doesn't really happen, honestly, on accident. Um, it really is built through conscious effort, doing your research, building those authentic relationships, and listening, actively listening. So this month, let's recognize the Latino community's strength and resilience and commit just as an organization and as people to make inclusion real every single day. Now, you're probably wondering, when is Hispanic Heritage Month? It is September 15th to October 15th. So you have time to really make a difference and learn more about it. But also remember, commit throughout the entire year. So I want you to comment your stories or your experiences below, and I want to keep this conversation going because it is super important. And maybe it's your own story, or maybe it's an experience that you've witnessed. Maybe it's someone that you know who's experiencing something. Keeping the conversation allows other people to feel like they are not going through any of this alone, because there's a lot happening. So I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to see you again. And check out the next video. I think you're really going to benefit from it. Have a good one.